45 years in keeping Louisville weird, Electric Ladyland has been there for all your eccentricities. While they do offer the best smoking supplies out on the market today, there's a whole lot more to check out. From ashtrays and blacklight posters, to records, incense, and burners, and items to stock your metaphysical supply. They're open from 10 to 10, 7 days a week, located at 2325 Bardstown Road in Louisville, Kentucky, and at electricladyland420.com. Roll out.
Aaron Ossont for a little segment we called Ossont Battery for the Flamekeeper network, and I just want to give a shout out to my boys Mark Jackson and Jason Gardner for really helping with the editing and a lot of putting me onto the network. So I really appreciate that, guys. Today I got with me Brad Frye from Desert Records and the band Red Mesa. Really great band, really great label. I'm gonna really dig into the Desert Record part this interview. And so I'm just going to get into it right now. And welcome, Brad. This is Ossont Battery.
All right, Aaron, man, it's a real pleasure to be on here. You and I have been talking over online and over email and for a long time. I started Desert Records in 2018, and I think you were one of the first people to start, supporting the label. And I think that you may be the only person out there that has bought everything that I've put out, because you've been there since day one.
A little physical.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and we've talked about, how there are particular people in, that support different genres of music that really help bands out and buy things that labels put out and buy things that bands put out on a consistent basis. And I just want to say a huge thank you for that, and I really appreciate all your support, man.
Oh, my pleasure. I mean, you make it easy with all the great music. Like I said, I first really got turned on to the label. There's a local band around here, When the Deadbolt Breaks, and you put out their Angels Are Weeping. What's the name of the album?
Yeah, you're right. It's a long title. It's Angels Are Weeping ... God Has Abandoned.
That's right. Yep. And first of all, they're such a unique band. I mean, I heard them. I forgot earplugs the first time I heard them, and saw them live, and that was a big mistake. I'll never do that again.
Yeah, they're very loud.
What's that?
They're very loud.
And
and crushing.
Such a nice, talented guy, and then I saw that, he had was releasing that album, and he put it out on your label. I'd never heard of the label before. So I, bought the record because I wanted to support a local band. And then I saw you were doing later on, a few months later, I think you started a subscription thing through, and I signed up for that because I was like, hey, you get discounted off. And I said, so I got into Red Mesa, your band, and I was blown away by that. And like I always said about Desert Records, what you do great is you get bands that I already love, right? You sign bands that I didn't know that I'm going to love, and you sign unsigned bands that I already love. And I'm like, oh, when's someone going to sign this band? A band like Spliff Ripper, I was like into them for, like a year. And then I was like, oh man, awesome. Brad signed them. So you're just a great label. So it's easier to support,
Oh, thanks, man.
First question I really have is, how did you first get into heavy music? What was like one of the first maybe bands or even like a movie maybe you heard a heavy song in, or an album or something?
I grew up in Maine, so I'm a New Englander as well.
Nice.
My parents are still back there in Eastern Maine, on the coastline. I grew up in a small town, lobster fishing town, kind of kind of up near the Canadian border on the coastline, up towards like Acadia National Park. That part of Maine, 3 hours from Portland.
Wow.
Real isolated. Um, always kind of felt like we got everything 5 years late or something. We were certainly not the apex of American culture or anything. It was just sort of it was a long winter and DIY culture for work and piecing everything together to survive, kind of thing. My parents had some cassette tapes that we'd listen to in the car or, when we drive around. And my mom turned me on to two bands that I still love today, the Beatles and Creedence Clearwater Revival.
I love CCR.
Yeah. And my dad turned me on to like Bruce Springsteen, John Lennon. He really liked John Lennon, some country, stuff like that. And we listened to a lot of kind of 50s and 60s kind of bubblegum pop and Motown, and just some like light rock, soft rock that I have a whole bunch of those songs stuck in my head from my from when I was 7, 8, 9, 10. But it didn't really do it for me. And I think it would have been like 87, I guess, 1987. It would have been like Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, Def Leppard, Hysteria, and regrettably Bon Jovi, like Slippery When Wet. I think those kind of caught my attention for louder rock, and then started to kind of just dig into stuff from there. Then I really loved Motley Crue, like shortly thereafter. And then I think it was pushing into the grunge era. That hit right at the right time for me in early high school, and fell in love with the Seattle bands and that sound. Then I went back and listened to the heavier classic rock and 80s metal stuff, and then got into like progressive metal and rock, like through Tool in the 90s, and then it was like, okay, what am I missing? And I was like, oh, a lot. I don't know anything. That's just a little bit. And I'm still learning a lot. I mean, there's so much stuff that I haven't listened to or really know, but I think that was really the beginning for me. And then of course I heard Caius and Queens of the Stone Age. A friend gave both of those to me after Caius was completely done years later. I think it was 2003. I was given Caius Sky Valley CD and Queens of the Stone Age Song for the Deaf, which they had just basically put out.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't know if I really like the Queen stuff that much. It's kind of poppy, but this Caius shit is like something that I've always wanted to hear. And I was kind of mesmerized in a way that I hadn't been in a while by music, in my early 20s. And I was like, holy fuck, I've been waiting to hear this. It has everything that I love in music, but it's unique and I've never heard anything quite like it. And it changed kind of what I thought about music. Like Caius was a big changer, game changer. And it's kind of weird because like now, like I've listened to it so much, I don't play it,
Yeah. I've had the same experience with that album.
Yeah, it's amazing, but I can't really hear it anymore. Or experience it the way I ever want to. And I guess it's that way with like Pink Floyd and stuff like that. I listened to a lot of that stuff, and the impact that had on me was so profound. But now it's like, it's like watching a movie 100 times and you're not, what's coming. And again, I'm not bitter about that. I guess it's just how that works. And it kind of, all of that kind of went into the blender as I started picking up guitar in my early 20s. I started pretty late. I just played acoustic.
Mhm.
I played around the campfire with friends in Washington State, and I have a friend, Tyler Graves, who taught me how to play acoustic guitar, taught me chords. I started playing harmonica just before I started picking up guitar, and I took some blues harmonica classes in Seattle, and I learned how to play blues harmonica, and then I started learning how to play with a rack while playing acoustic guitar, and realized that I could do it okay. And I was like, well, this is encouraging. And then I tried to sing a little bit, and it was just a lot of sitting around with random people drinking beer and smoking pot and whatnot, doing mushrooms and passing bottles of liquor around the campfire, and started playing and got comfortable like singing and playing in front of people. But I didn't really pick up electric guitar till I was probably 28. Didn't really start playing electric guitar into my early 30s, right before
Wow.
I started Red Mesa, which was really weird. So like that first Red Mesa album was like, I mean, I listened to it, I'm like, wow, it sounds like, it felt like a long time ago. It was 10 years ago. Musically, a lot of things have progressed.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Once you can hear with the Red Mesa is like the progression through each, album. So I'm super excited for the next one, like where that's gonna go.
it's
Now,
it's a monster. That's all I can say. It's phenomenal. But anyways, yeah, go ahead, buddy.
when coming into that, is that part of the reason when you started Desert Records is to release the Red Mesa stuff?
Yeah, it was like this weird thing where like my trajectory in music is so different than almost anybody you're going to talk to, in the sense that I thought about it in my 20s and I didn't do anything, right? Where most bands are getting going in high school and they're starting to finally get the bands together in their early 20s, and they start doing the thing, putting out albums, playing live, doing little tours. But for me to start Red Mesa, so I started it in 2013,
Mhm.
August, so 10 years ago. And it's my first band, which is also
Oh,
weird, right? Like that's pretty weird. I was a live rhythm guitarist for another band here in Albuquerque before I started Red Mesa for like a year. It was probably more like 6 months. That broke up, and they're a really great band. I learned a lot on electric guitar from my buddy Dave Walsh, and none of them play music anymore that I know of, and they're all scattered out around the Southwest now. And they were called Night Terrain, like the land, the terrain,
yeah,
but I thought it was pretty cool. It's like, oh, it's kind of like a GNR thing.
yeah.
Night Terrain, and they were really heavy post metal instrumental music. But anyways, that was like really the only band I was in, and I was just playing with a few live shows with them, and then I started Red Mesa and was like, well, I just got to figure it out. So when I put out the first album, self-titled, in 2014, um, it was just me learning how to write songs and kind of like manage a band.
Yeah.
And and the guys that I had on are really cool guys. And once we kind of started getting going, it was sort of like, wow, I really want to push this. And those guys really had a lot of other priorities, with family and businesses and stuff like that. So by the time it came to do The Devil in the Desert, which I put out in 2018, I didn't have a band, and I shopped around the album, which is you're familiar with. It's the first album that I put out on Desert Records, and it was the reason I started Desert Records.
Love that album.
And it's just me playing acoustic guitars, like acoustic guitar songs on the front end and on side A, if you will, for vinyl. And side B was like as heavy as I could make it. And it was a really big growing time for me, man. Fucking A. Like I was me and Matthew Tobias, who is a drummer, but he is the recording engineer that we've recorded a ton of stuff with, and we just wrapped up the latest Red Mesa record. It was
Nice.
me and him in the studio. He recommended a few session guys to do like bass and extra guitar and lap steel and shit like that. It was me and Matt just hammered out that record. Me playing all acoustic guitars, me playing electric guitars, me playing bass on the second half of it, and I'm not a bass player. Him doing drumming on everything, and then on the front end we got some stand-up bass. I got lap steel, second guitar, from my buddy Alex McMahon, who's in the Growl Brothers, who's also on Desert Records.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. And so, you know, and I recorded that album like 2017, late 2017, put it out in 2018. It was the first record that I put out on Desert Records. And honestly, I thought to myself, Aaron, was like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to be a better musician and understand what the music industry is at this modern age, I need to probably start learning the business. And so I started a record label, and I reached out to Jad from Blues Funeral,
Yep.
who lives in Albuquerque and is a great friend of mine and been a huge mentor for me. And then Todd from Ripple, because Ripple put out Red Mesa on the Second Coming of Heavy as an EP, which was Second Coming of Heavy Volume 4, Ripple compilation in 2016. That was kind of how we got on the map. And I Bucky Brown found us from the Low and Slow music video that we put out from the first album. He sent it to Todd. Todd was like, this is fucking awesome. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, why don't you guys do like a side of a split for vinyl for I need like 20 minutes of music. And so me and the original Red Mesa band members recorded that, and that was kind of it for that lineup. And that came out in 2016. I made friends with Todd. I hit him up about running the label. He was like, dude, do it. There's so many bands out there. And I'm wrapping all this up, Aaron. I'm coming back around to when the deadbolt breaks. I released The Devil in the Desert in 2018. Aaron hit me up and he's like, check it out. We need a label. Do you think you'd be interested? And I listened to it. I was like, fuck, I hadn't honestly thought about putting out music from other bands because I don't know what I'm doing. And I told him that. And we talked for a while, and I thought about it, and I was like, well, fuck, I'll give it a shot. And we did that vinyl, put that out on LP, and I just had to learn all the vinyl pressing shit too, because I had kind of learned it by doing out The Devil in the Desert. And then I had to learn about like, how do I release bands' music? And you just start learning how to run that small business, which is a record label. And then I put out The Horn God, which is a local band later that year. And that was the first year. I had 3 albums on LPs, had 3 bands out. And then I'm like, holy fuck, I don't really know what I'm doing. And that was 5 years ago. And now I put out almost 50 records.
Yeah, I mean, speaking like you mentioned The Horn God, and that's one band I'm blown away about, and especially their other band they have, Luomo Nero. I think that's how you pronounce it, right?
Yep, Luomo Nero. Yeah,
they're so unique. I mean, one band, the heaviness of in like what I always say about The Horn God, it's always on the verge of almost going out of control. It seems like it's almost right there, but it just stays in, so it's killer. And Luomo, the songwriting in that, I mean, he is such a phenomenal musician and songwriter, and it's just crazy. I was that was one of those bands where I'm so glad I found your label, because I was introduced to that music and I listen to them all the time. So I'm, like I said, great music there.
Thanks, man. Then honestly, that's Dominic from The Horn God and Luminero. It's just basically the same band and the same guys. It is, he's really, really talented. It's insane. And I think that's just it. If you want to listen to a band that has top-notch singer-songwriting and top-notch musicianship, but it's not heavy in the sense that we talk about when we say heavy, it's just rock and roll and soul and blues all mixed in. Luminero, that music is phenomenal.
It's so unique. So unique.
And he's got a whole vision. And so Desert Records is about to release Luminero's third EP, which is a trilogy of EPs. And all of them are on 10-inch gatefold vinyl. And when you open it up, it all forms one big piece of artwork. You can find the highlighted letters in the lyrics, and you can piece them together and make a phrase, and then you get a free song. The vinyl's really cool. The artwork's really cool. And all 12 songs into the 13th bonus song make an entire story about the mysterious death of a woman in New Mexico that, and Dominic's really the one to tell the story, but in a sense, it was a real life murder mystery.
Wow.
And he was close to this woman, and this is his therapy to put this album out.
Wow.
It's
That is
fucking heavy shit.
Yeah. Like I said, he's like, and the lyrics are just fun. He is one of the most phenomenal lyrics in one of the songs on from L'Uomo Nero, where you know, it's just it blows me away, and it's actually inspired me, and you know, inspired my everyday life and stuff like that. So that's how much of a great songwriter the guy is. And like I said, with the Horn God, it's almost like the alter ego. You know, you have the kind of lightness of L'Uomo Nero, and then the, you know, the heaviness of the Horn God, which, you know, there's volume 1, so I hope that implies there will be a volume 2, hopefully.
Yeah, I know the Dom's all done with it, so there'll be a volume 2 for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So going into that, how do you like decide, because you Desert Records has a very, you know, varied different types of bands on there, from like really heavy stuff to more soundtrack stuff like the Grawl Brothers. How do you decide like which bands you want to sign, and you know, because there's a lot to pick from, and you can't, you know, take everything.
That's been a tough one, because it, of course, early on, you know, doing 2018, 2019, 2020, it was sort of me like, how do what am I trying to go for here? Like, what separates me from just another label that's putting out, you know, heavy underground stuff that's non-extreme metal, right? Because I'm not doing black metal, I'm not doing death metal, I'm not doing, you know, forms of extreme metal or like hardcore and stuff like that. And although I like black metal and I like some death metal, especially live, that I wasn't going for those genres of metal. So it's going to be your stoner, doom, psych, desert stuff, and instrumental. And so for me, it was like, well, what has a vibe that sort of thematically connects Desert Records to its artists? You know, I'm live in the desert, and I'm kind of obsessed with desert environments, and how can I get that sound into the label so you get a lot of that sound from the bands? And so that, I guess, it's a very subjective thing. It's just what my ear picks up, that I'm like, this is weird enough and interesting enough, and the band's music is good, they're active, they're really nice and good people to work with. I mean, that's a huge part of it. They're going to work hard. You know, they're going to communicate well, because in the end, it's a lot of conversation about stuff, and you're trying to make sure that you're helping the band release their vision beyond just the music that they made. So taking all those things into consideration, and then Jad was like, well, you also have to love it. And I was like, he's like, if you release something and it doesn't sell well, you might be pissed off if you don't love it. And I was like, oh, well, of course. And that was a good thing, you know? And so it's like, well, do I love it? You know? And so, I don't know, man, it's a kind of a hard one. Again, it was early on, it was tricky. And now I definitely have I'm really focusing on very deserty weird shit, and then focusing on that heavy psychedelic rock and metal kind of thing, you know? Yeah.
So that, and that gets like stuff like Book of Worms was another great band that is, you know, very different band. So is there any like what's, do you have anything in the future that's going on with Desert Records that you're excited about, or anything, any big plans or anything like that? I know every local band has big plans coming soon, but you know, anything new coming out?
Yeah, so I can talk about it because I haven't announced it, and I feel like it's the perfect time. I'm really happy to announce that on December 8th, I will release Nebula Drag's next full length.
Nice.
And Nebula Drag is a trio from San Diego, California, and I put out their last album, Blood, BLUD, in 2019. And they are, for those of you that aren't familiar with them, they are like sort of psychedelic space metal, and it's a combination of Corey Quintana is the vocalist and the guitarist, and he's a wizard on guitar, in the sense that he is a riff meister, but his leads and his progressions and his tone is phenomenal. They're a phenomenal band live. The rhythm section's just sort of pummeling, and his voice is almost like if you've got Perry Farrell, from Porno for Pyros or whatever, singing. It's kind of that style. So it's a really cool mix of like kind of thrashy, kind of spacey metal mixed with that kind of like really reverby drenched delay singing, but he's a really good singer. You're not burying Corey's vocals in reverb because he's not a good singer, which is a common thing in this particular style of genre that we're all familiar with. There's a whole bunch of that. And, in my opinion, that's just, they're not that good as singers. You're just burying them down in the mix with a lot of reverb. And it's a vibe, and that's cool, but I don't really love that personally. I like it when you can really hear somebody fucking sing, if they can or not. And so Corey's a real singer, man. He's phenomenal, especially if you ever get to see him live, which is tough because they are just as opposite in the country from where you are. But wow. So Nebula Drag, Western Death. That's what it's called. Western Death.
Now, is that going to get a vinyl release or?
Yeah, and the vinyl is just really above and beyond what I've done before. I think it's probably the most eye candy-ish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we did like 300, so we've got 3 variants plus a black. So there's a lot for the vinyl fans and collectors out there.
Well, now that we're talking about vinyl, how is that? Has that started to improve a little bit as far as like delivery time? Since like I know the pandemic like totally kind of fucked everything over and set everything way back. I mean, I'm kind of patient. I realized, sometimes when I order a record, I'm gonna come in for 9 months, but that's kind of how it was then. Has that gotten any better, or have you found that or not?
Turnaround times have gotten a lot better. No, you're really patient, man. You've always been patient with the pre-orders, especially during 2021, right? When we were all trying to get stuff orders in and the labels are backed up like crazy, and then you start a pre-order and then you don't get it for, it could have been 6 to 9 months. You're real patient. I think a lot of the fans of the label were really patient. They understood. And I was just like, we're going to start a pre-order, but I don't know when it's going to get here. And that's kind of a weird feeling. Now it's back to where I don't have to do that. I can start a pre-order knowing that the vinyl will be there by release day, or at least to try to get in the hands of the pre-orders before release day. So we're back to like, oh man, it kind of varies, but I would just say 4 to 6 months at the latest turnaround time. Some places can knock it out in 3 months.
Nice.
At the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
So another thing is like, say a band wants to, maybe they're interested in getting on Desert Records. How does someone go about that? What's the process with that? Do they contact you directly, the label, or either or?
Yeah, they can. I prefer them to email me and send me, a submission that includes who they are and why they feel like they'd be a good fit, and then if they have music ready and I can listen to it, a private link, and an EPK about the band themselves. And I get a lot of submissions, and I try to respond to them and tell them no, and I mean that because as one guy, running a record label is an extreme amount of organization and an extreme amount of time that is consumed. And after 5 years, it's still a labor of love, so I have to really be careful about how much money I'm putting in and how many bands I'm signing at this point. Yeah. Honestly, at the moment, unless it's a huge band, I'm closed for submissions. I mean, people can send me stuff, but I'm not signing bands. I mean, my roster's full at the moment. I have albums lined up through 2024.
Nice.
And figuring out Legends of the Desert series through 2025 and 26. And yeah, I'm pretty backed up on stuff, and Desert Records bands that want to put out records in the next couple of years, and there's a lot going on for sure.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Legends of the Desert. What brought about like that kind of series? Because that's like a really interesting where you have each record has a band on each side. And you picked some really interesting bands. Some of them I hadn't heard before, but like really became a fan of them because of that. Like, what was the process with doing that, or that idea?
It was me, number one, I wanted to give back because I got a shot with Ripple, and Ripple put me on a compilation, and I really appreciate that Todd did that, and it meant a lot to me. That was a huge moment in my life as being in a band, to have my album be included on a record label that I liked and come out on vinyl. And it was such a good feeling. I wanted to start a series that was like a flagship compilation series for Desert Records, but that had different criteria and parameters, and I wanted to be a real desert thing. So number one, I started out and I talked to She-Verb and Betty Benededley before she was doing a solo thing. And I was like, what do you guys think of this kind of thing? I need to feel like you're the right group to kind of throw this against the wall at. Plus, I'd like to have you guys be involved, or most of them are women, be involved. And Betty was like, gunslinger thing just sounds like another, I was going to call it the Gunslinger series. She's like, it just sounds like another like kind of male dominated Western thing. And I'm like, yeah, it's a good point. And I'm actually not truly trying to go that route. I don't want to like do the cowboy thing, I want to do something different with the desert thing. And like, how can I define this into what could be a flagship thing for the series? So I started to go, number one, the bands have to be geographically located in the American Southwest. Two, they have to have a true, unique, completely new desert sound that is unique to the band, and then just unique to what the desert rock genre people think of. And all those things are a big challenge to line two bands up that also sonically complement each other on an LP, because you're going to have one band on side A and one side B. And so I started out with Pale Horse, Pale Rider and Lord Buffalo, whom I both saw at Monolith on the Mesa, the first Monolith on the Mesa that my friend and drummer in Red Mesa, Roman Barham, and his deceased business partner and friend Dano Sanchez, they put on in 2019. And it was like the best fucking Southwest outdoor music festival I've ever seen. I mean, they just crushed it. And I saw those two bands. I was like, fuck, I'm gonna go talk to them right now. And so I hit them both up. I was like, I'm gonna do this thing, this compilation. I want you guys on it. And they were both like, cool. We'll talk when we get off the road. Put out Legends of the Desert 1, Pale Horse, Pale Rider, Lord Buffalo. Holy shit, that was a good release. Yeah, 500 vinyl. Those are sold out worldwide, which is crazy. Just super popular release. And it was just a really good feeling to like start that series. And I'm going really slow on it, and intentionally, because it has to be really particular the way that I got to put these bands together and get these sounds together and get the artwork together. The artwork's all done by Joshua Mathis out of Arizona. And
show some of that art here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, dude. Oh, you got the print. That's right.
Yeah.
That's the print that we did. Beautiful. And so, yeah, that's the Legends of the Desert 3. And I don't know if you noticed, I haven't talked much about it, Aaron, but like the animal or the reptile or whatever that is on the front of the album cover dies on the back of the next album cover. So that's the skull of it. So like the horse skull, the horse that's on the front of yeah, I mean, there's like, weird shit I think about. So people don't notice, and then I don't talk about it, and then no one fucking knows. So the horse that's on the front of Legends Volume 1 is dead on the back of Legends Volume 2, which is the Penitent Man and Cortege. And then the Gila monster that's on the front of the Legends 2 album is dead on the back of Volume 3 that is currently out with Fatso Jetson and Dalai Lama. And so that all ties in. It's all this like circular life and death thing.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's like I like the continuity, and that's what, like I said, that's one of my favorite things about Desert Records is the uniqueness that you have. You know, it's got a unique feel. It's not just like every other label where it's like here there's just a bunch of heavy metal bands or stoner doom bands. Like it definitely feels like each band is different from the rest, but has its own little fits its own little niche in the label, you know. And but they have a kind of a continuity between all the bands, a certain heaviness, not necessarily maybe with a volume or a sound, but with a I think a feel, you know.
Yeah.
And like you said with Luomo Nero, it's not heavy music per se, but the mood or with the inspiration is pretty heavy, you know. And then that's what I enjoy about it is like you know there's lots of stuff to pick through, and you know it's definitely a great label, and you're signed some great bands. So
Thanks, buddy. And I mean, just having you support, and you'll hit me up about, hey, is there any of these left, or I'm going to purchase it in a few weeks. And I mean, that's just cool with me because I get to talk, with people like you. And I do all the customer service myself, and I respond to every message and I respond to every email, and I try to do it within 24 hours. And for me to stay on top of those things has sort of created a habit. So I know, like, it's so easy to miss things because, I also have a couple part-time jobs that I've pieced together. I
yeah,
also, I also, me and my wife run an Airbnb. I also started a PR company. I also have a band. I'm also a part-time stay-at-home dad. It's a lot to balance. And having the label as this sort of like daily thing that's happening in my life, I just have to be on it. And so I guess in some ways it's maybe more organized, running a label. Because it's not really exciting. There's a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of emailing.
yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd rather be outside or something or playing guitar. So you know what I mean? It's just part of the deal. But yeah, so it's kind of weird. But it's good. So Western Death by Nebula Drag will be the last album that I'll put out in this year in 2023. And then 2024 will be the new Red Mesa. It will be Legends Desert 4. I can't tell you who's on that yet. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I just can't make that announcement. And then working on Legends Desert 5 because I want to do 7 total in that series, and we're only at 3, and I want to kind of pick up the pace on those a little bit.
Yeah.
And those are going to be just really killer, man.
Awesome. Well, I think that's probably all I got left to ask you, man. So I think we'll probably wrap this up. This has been Ossont Battery on the Flamekeeper Network with Brad Frye from Desert Records. Is there anything else left you want to promote or anything, Brad?
I just want to say, like to you and all the fans out there that supported Desert Records, I mean, I really appreciate it. And just a shout out to all of the bands that are on the label. They've just been phenomenal to work with. And I have a lot of gratitude for this experience. And go check out Desert Records on Bandcamp, or on Spotify or on my website. Go dig into it. It's fucking awesome. The subscription's awesome. You get a lot of music for a really good price, like $36 a year still. You get all the albums. Go check out the bands. Go see them live. Support real music played by real people. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Brad. It's been great having you on, man. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, and I really appreciate you being on. And I'm also, like I said, thanks to Jason Gardner and Mark Jackson from the Flamekeeper for letting me do this. And we're signing off from Ossont Battery. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, Eddie.
Maxwell's House of Music in Jeffersonville, Indiana is the premier 12,500 square foot music superstore that has served both the southern Indiana and Louisville, Kentucky metro area for over 4 decades. Originally founded by Marvin and Beverly Maxwell in the 70s, this gym remains a Maxwell family-owned business. Mark Maxwell, along with his business partner, Whitney McNichol, continue the reputation as being a national resource for all things music. In 2022, the iconic Guitar Emporium of Louisville relocated to Maxwell's Music, creating the largest independently owned showroom in the region. The retail offerings at Maxwell's Music includes a huge selection of guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects pedals, modeling amps, keyboards, drums, banjos, mandolins, ukuleles, sound systems, stage lighting equipment, and accessories. The music education program at Maxwell's is second to none. From private instrument and voice lessons to DG, EDM, recording, songwriting, and music theory to rock school, weekend warriors, and Maxwell's Music Lab, there is something for every age and every ability level. In Repairland, guitar and instrument repairs and refurbishment are taken care of by the Maxwell's team of expert guitar technicians and luthiers. They also do instrument appraisals. Maxwell's offers installations for professional audio-visual and lighting systems for schools, churches, clubs, VFWs, funeral homes, sports fields, and so much more. There's also rentable space at Maxwell's, from music practice or rehearsal rooms for individuals or bands, all the way to a meeting space and concert venue that seats up to 120. That also includes a professional audio-visual and lighting system and a sound booth. Maxwell's has it all. All this plus an original, functioning 1947 recording booth to make your own record, to the Guitar Hero throne, to their very own Elvis statue, and don't forget the Harmony Green Pocket Park. There's a reason Maxwell's House of Music in Jeffersonville, Indiana has been recognized by the National Association of Music Merchants as the #1 award-winning Best Store Design, as well as Top 100 Music Store year after year. You gotta see it to believe it. Maxwell's House of Music in Jeffersonville, Indiana.